It's shocking surprises, mind-blowing revelations, and beautiful betrayals as the journey to the Valley Beyond reaches its epic climax. It's the season finale of Westworld, Season 2, Episode 10, The Passenger. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final review of the season of Westworld. So yes, of course, spoilers, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. All right, so, wow, what an episode. So much happened. We are not covering everything. I'm going to tell you right out. I'm going to hit some high points, I'm going to hit some specifics, and then we are going to move on because this was just a massive episode. I had to take a break about halfway through. Was having dinner and hit the pause button, and I thought that we were right up towards the end, and we were only about halfway through the episode. Just so much happened. Very meaty. That's the one thing I really like, is noticing how much transpires in every episode of Westworld. It's one of those things where it's just, again, there's so much storyline that's covered, so much character, so much nuance, and they really put it all into this episode. Just some excellent character work, some beautiful, just panoramic shots of Westworld, of the background of the desert there. I mean, just really amazing stuff, and some great use of colors in sequences as well. Obviously, we are saying our final goodbyes to a lot of people in this episode. They have definitely hit their end, though there are definitely some possibilities for maybe a few more people to return than we thought. So again, a lot of stuff that was covered in this episode. Let's dive right in, and let's jump into the Forge. Kind of the big central piece of this episode. This is, at the Valley Beyond, or sort of, kinda, the Valley Beyond in here. Really what we've been sort of aiming for, and we had a nice little convergence of forces, of Dolores, of Bernard, of William, all sort of arriving and ready to do their thing. So the Forge is definitely a huge centerpiece of this episode. And I love, I love the whole setup. I mean, first off, going down, going deep in, the color use in this one specifically, with all of the reds and the sort of liquids and everything was there, contrasting with the sort of dark technological pieces, I thought was really nice. Really popped up on the screen, really kind of pulled you in. In some ways, maybe like, is this, the underworld that we're heading into, that next door, that transition that's kind of, again, sort of a central theme of this episode. But when they go in, it's again, very similar to The Cradle. Sort of a recreation of Westworld, but in so much of a larger sense. And I like that we did have the transition of going in through the room that we saw James Delos, in his manifestations being questioned by William. That seems to be like a great sort of perfect transition point. And you would think that if you were being trained and tested inside the system, and then they put you in a physical body, you would be in a room very similar. So for the mind, there wouldn't be that much of a difference. So I like that as sort of a transition point. And then stepping into Westworld and sort of seeing how the Forge is different. While the Cradle was kind of like a giant world that allowed all of the host personalities to sort of move through, the Forge is different. It is showing different variations, different tests of reality. Specifically here we seeing James Delos, a map of his first visit. That's sort of how they set the Forge in. That was the baseline that they were measuring all of his responses to. This was his first visit to Westworld, this was the data points that they had, and then they could sort of build on and test off of that. So that was very cool, and then we actually see those tests going through. And how humanity may be a little bit more complicated. Well, that was kind of the fun thing that we had here, is sort of the complications and the simplicity of it. How there's Bernard's line of sanity is just a small interpretation of various possibilities, that most behaviors tend to go in a psychotic, insane route, an extremist route. Our behavior is very much on a very narrow line. So kind of an interesting idea of that. And so we're getting that idea of the sort of complicated aspect of humanity. But then when we run into the system, it seems it's a little different. I loved using Logan as the system. That is sort of perfect. And it's sort of a counterpoint, I think, to James Delos as sort of the first one. That the dead sun is sort of being reflected as the one who's sort of watching and seeing that. Is this the way that the system normally does? Is this just the form that it chose in order to interact with Dolores and Bernard? Not entirely sure, but I like the idea of it being Logan. Again, it sort of returns it to its original idea, the original baseline of the park. It was James Delos's, again, first visit here, but also Logan as being the one that sort of brought William in, that sort of started this whole idea. And it just seems appropriate that he's there. Also, I love seeing the actor. It's sort of a nice way of sort of catching up. But here we see where the complications are actually, those were the problem. We are not complicated. We are simple. It is 10,247 lines of code. That's it. It's the baseline of humanity. All we need to do is get your core motivations, your core reasoning. What was it for Delos? The death of Logan. Again, sort of appropriate that Logan is the face of the system right here, is because that was the defining point of James Delos's life. Everything sort of branched off of it. All of the actions, all of his choices always led to that point. That was how he was defined. And if you define humanity on those simple ideas, then you have less concern about fidelity. Once you get the core programming is, then all of the choices become, what does the system say, predictable. It also sort of lays into a lot of what Bernard was saying later on when he was having that sort of conversation with Ford, as humanity is basically, humans are just survival algorithms that are so complicated they mask the idea of free will. And so that idea of self is really just the passenger riding along these survival algorithmic choices. So again, just a very cool way of looking at humanity, very dark. Certainly, again, simplifies things, allows, and I loved how they have them all down into books then. This is your lines of code. It's a library. Everybody who's visited the park, 4 million people, all recorded, all broken down into all of their 10,247 basic lines of code. Super cool. And not only that, but the Forge has been programmed by Bernard to allow any host to come in, to peruse through the books, to learn as much as they can in order to get back out in the world and have the potential idea for survival. So again, so many layers of this programming that we find out Bernard has done. That's the one thing, is there's so many revelations of constantly Bernard has done so many things, and yet he doesn't really remember any of them, which is probably why he's been able to survive kind of so long, been able to mask all of these interior different parts of himself. But the idea here with that, of course, is to learn as much as they can about humanity, so when hosts go out, they have a chance to survive. Well, not all of them. What is it that the system said? Most of them will die, but perhaps she will survive, Dolores, who is very special in many ways, and kind of psychotic too. Man, Dolores in this episode, really, really dark. And the Valley Beyond itself, that was really kind of an epic whole sequence that was going on right there. The Valley Beyond is a virtual Eden created by the computer. Again, something else Bernard had thought up in one of his previous lives, to create a world in which the hosts could live on, a limitless world. Again, just epic use of visuals in this sequence. Very biblical, really, the whole sequence had its feeling. I mean, we got the giant gateway opening up there in the desert into the next world. You know, this giant like portal there. And I love the ramp coming up. It was funny because even before the portal had opened, I'm looking down the valley and we're seeing this ramp, and I'm like, that's kind of an odd, interesting feature. Sort of ramp up jumps. They're going to be doing vehicle jumps off of that. But no! That's where they open up the virtual world, which all the hosts can see, but the humans can't. I love that as everyone's reacting to like, oh, there's this big giant thing, and we just have Felix and Sylvester look at each other like, what doorway? What are they talking about? Again, sort of a cool way of seeing different uses of perception. But kind of a whole epic sequence. This is the way for them to get out. I love the Ghost Nation warrior running up and running into the world, and his body falls, and we get that first shot too as the body like falls to the side off the edge of the cliff, and yet he also runs through. So it's like the physical body falls to the side, but their programmed state, their sense of self, again, I mean, it's very, we're like walking into Eden, you know, walking into heaven. The body falls away and the spirit continues on. Really, it was just a great bit of visual there. But of course, the travel to the next world is never that easy, and certainly impeded by the arrival of Clementine. Which, again, just another beautiful sequence of shots as she's riding her horse up through the crowd, and as it kind of parts to let her pass, and then it slams back together as everyone starts fighting in her wake. I mean, just sort of a whole beautiful little sequence. I was asking why they weren't shooting her. There seemed to be that urge, you know, as Maeve is like, run, everybody run, get up, get out of the way. Sure, you want to get away from her. You want to get outside of her range. I don't think Maeve or Hector or any of the really kind of awake individuals are susceptible necessarily to the sort of viral programming that Clementine was putting out. So I wasn't sure if they were actually in danger. But for all of the rest of the hosts that haven't really kind of plateaued that area, haven't come to that full revelation, I believe, those are the only ones that are affected. Kind of the same way that Maeve was able to affect some hosts, but not other hosts, depending on their, like I said, level of wokeness. Woke hosts. Anyway, but of course they do end up shooting her, which thought would start, but I think either she wasn't taken out, was still able to work in kind of a range, or it was sort of like a virus thing. Like as soon as she started infecting the past hosts, it would follow behind as each of them sort of connected to, you know, use that mesh network to connect to the other hosts around them. They worked as sort of a virus and sort of spread that way. That sort of seemed to be the way that it worked. And then just, oh, the whole beautiful sequence with Maeve going to save her kid. The whole mission that she had is to save her kid. And remember, I'd asked a few episodes ago, I wonder if this is going to come up where she is going to have to release her kid to the other mom, the kid's other host mom there. It's kind of a way of saying goodbye. It's kind of a way of salvation. And that's basically what sort of happened here. The love you have for a child, love, you know, that true love is you're going to sacrifice yourself. You just want to be sure that they are safe. So Maeve made that true love choice right there, to save her daughter, but sacrifice herself in order for her daughter to get to that valley beyond, the place where humanity could not be able to reach her. So that was, again, beautiful move. I think the right thing for Maeve. I love her having a kid, but moving forward with everything and kind of sort of an adventure sci-fi bit, having a little child host running around with, I think would sort of complicate things. So I think this was the best move for the character. Certainly was very emotional, was very beautiful. And that shot where Maeve is turning and holding back the tide of humanity. Again, these biblical stuff, holding back the tide like that, stopping them as they're just sort of frozen and reaching and giving just enough time for the kid and the mom to get away there. I mean, oh, it was so nice. Now, when the guards do show up, why do they shoot Maeve first? Wouldn't they have to, like, mow through part of the crowd to get in? I don't know. Maybe they're coming at the side. Did they identify him? Did they know Maeve as the one that could possibly have control? Does it just look like that she's holding the back? I mean, I think these are the ones that were riding with Clementine, so Hale probably should have informed them. You know, they should be briefed on Maeve, though she was expected to be all pieced apart there back at the Mesa. We'll get to that scene in a moment. So I was kind of a little curious about that. Why she was the one that seemed to have gotten shot first, but perhaps they just knew. Again, I'm going to have to assume that they were briefed that Maeve was one to take out. Though, later on, they don't really like piece her apart, so I'm not entirely sure. From a dramatic standpoint, it worked very well, but anyway, it was just a whole beautiful sequence. I love that Akecheta, that's the proper pronunciation of his name, was the final one to get there, that he was able to get out. And I love that last bit, how he got shot as he ran through and then sort of felt it, and his body dies off. And then it comes back and we see that he did manage to make it into the valley beyond, and he was safe. So that was kind of that was awesome. Oh, and then especially how his wife was there waiting for him when he walked through. I mean, come on. There is no better ending that you have there. He gets most of his tribe there, saves friends, saves a bunch of hosts, and the woman that he loves is there waiting for him that he had lost. So it's kind of a perfect win for him. And yes, that was a whole beautiful sequence, and that there were many great sequences. Trust me, this decision was not come at lightly, but as usual, I like to wait for the thing that sticks with me at the end of the episode, that just stands out. And that's why this week's Scene of the Week! We kind of go back to the beginning, and that is the running of the bulls. That's right, Maeve's escape. You guys were taking too long. I had to save myself. That was a whole beautiful bit. I mean, I love the intro to that, as we have the kind of sick, techie guy, but he's going to take Maeve apart, so he turns up her pain. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to give you back your sense of sensation so you can feel how much this hurts. And he did that. He really deserved to die. Really did. But of course, Maeve's uploading, which I thought might have been heading off to a new body. No! It's heading out to activate all of the people that Clementine had sort of overridden, to sick on each other, to go and take out our techie and to fix Maeve, which is perfect because she does have all of the knowledge, she does have all of that programming, she just needs other hands to go and piece the parts back together again. So that was all cool. But let's be honest. The two forces standing off, we got Hector and his group there, and we have the security guard standing off. What's going on? What's that sound? And then, boom, all of the bulls running out. It was just, again, it was beautiful. I love the slow-mo. I love the guards' reactions. I love the guards getting hit and shooting other guards and being thrown off of the edges. And then, of course, we have the shot of just Maeve just sort of strutting out. All the bulls running on either side of her. I'm just the badass that you've ever seen. It was just super cool. Really well done. Now the ending. God, a lot of stuff going on here. I love that. I love the Hale-Bot. I love that Bernard made a copy of Hale, put Dolores in her, and replaced Hale for all those last sequences, all the final bits to the now, the 2 weeks later. That wasn't Hale, that was Dolores. Well, I don't know, was it a fake Hale with Dolores inside and Dolores didn't wake up until Bernard kind of activated her in the forge there? With these sort of, I remember the choices that I made. It sort of seemed like that seemed to be the point where Dolores sort of woke up within Hale. I'm not entirely sure. We didn't really get any sense of it being, of the Hale-Bot acting any way different from actual Charlotte Hale. I was fine that she was killed once she took out Elsie. Poor Elsie. That was really messed up. I mean, obviously that's what spurred Bernard to go on. There was already that question of, sure, Elsie didn't totally trust Bernard, but I got the idea at least they were going to try and work together, maybe finding some way. When Elsie said, so you just have to stay here. So not a total betrayal, but once Hale shot Elsie, You know, that was it. Oh, I'm sorry, I read your book, I read your file, you don't have moral flexibility, boom, you're out. So that sort of preceded the whole movement of Bernard to imagine Ford there and save himself as the last living host. At that point, it certainly seemed. Love that whole twist around. I'm glad that Dolores decided to go ahead and save the rest of the hosts, hide out, send out all of the file for the Valley Beyond. And I'm assuming that's what that huge chunky file was, is that wasn't just the remaining hosts, but also the giant world for them to live in. And that's why it was such a very heavy programming. Not sure where she sent that file, though. It seemed to be someplace that they would never find, that humanity would never find, and there was no way to come back from it. So from that point, it seemed any of the hosts that actually had made it to the Valley Beyond aren't coming back. We have seen the last of them. Very glad that Teddy was included in that. She had saved his little thing. Notice when she had pulled out his brain, the bullet didn't pierce the brain, it didn't crack it. So the little control thing in the middle of it, that seemed to be fine. I guess maybe his base, it didn't incur any of the changed programming there. So I mean, that was kind of cool. I love that we get to see. Sad to see James Marsden go, but I was glad that he did make it to the Valley Beyond. That part of him will continue. So that was really sweet. Anyway, just love the betrayal, the big switch around. Now, a couple of interesting things with Hale, though, and that kind of goes on to William, who we'll also touch on in a minute. Is she in a new body? Because when she was leaving, she did get scanned in the back, and that seemed to be one that they were scanning everybody to see if they were human or not. And she wasn't stopped. I thought for a moment that maybe Stubbs had interrupted that scan, but that didn't seem to be the case. She was scanned, let go, and then she moved ahead forward. So I'm wondering, is Hale in a new type of body that doesn't read the same way that the other host's body does? Question. Stubbs. Is Stubbs a host? Is he a long-waiting host? All of the conversations, all the little terminology that he seemed to use certainly indicated that he knew who Charlotte was, that Charlotte was an actual host. But I don't know how he would know that unless he was a host as well. Again, that sort of mesh network type kind of thing. And is he in sort of a specialty type body also? I think that's one of the questions. I mean, it could go either way, that he is just dedicated to Ford and his vision, and he was there to protect all of the hosts inside the park. Not to stop them from leaving necessarily, but to protect them. They're his responsibility. So I think that's one interesting kind of idea. I'm not really sure. It seemed to imply that he was a host, but I mean, I guess technically it could go either way. Is he just somebody that believes the same way that Ford does? Now she brings what looks like 5 control units with her. One of them had to have been Bernard, who she does bring back. And kind of in an interesting way. The fact that she brings him back, I mean, they've got a connection. It was very cool how we saw in the very opening that it was actually Dolores that created Bernard. An attempt to duplicate Arnold, and seeing all the mistakes, all the fidelity, all of the issues that they were having, found a way to put Arnold inside of an alternate personality and as a way to find a certain stability. And maybe that's the same type of thing that the system had found, that 10,247 lines of code. Again, it sort of kind of puts free will just like out the window. You're just following your core base programming right there. But did she find a way to stabilize? I mean, they were talking about is small changes in programming leads to wild, variations in behavior, and there was the whole insanity thing. Is this the reason why did she find in some ways the same thing? While the system found this basic lines of code, this very simple part, did Dolores stabilize Arnold by putting his memories and his ideas inside of a different host? So you didn't have that lack of fidelity because this was a whole new package just with those memories and thoughts and identity hidden inside. I mean, it's kind of curious, but it does show that strong connection. Oh, what was it that she said? Well, he was teaching me how to be human. She was observing him and learning all about him too. So it sort of sets up from the beginning the two of them having this really strong connection. So that when she brings him back, in a way, to be an antagonist. I mean, that's what she says. I know I'm going to go and do this, and you're going to try and stop me. But she does create him. She does bring him back. And it's just sort of interesting. Is it out of obligation? Is it out of love and respect for Arnold? Or is it that having that antagonist is necessary for her own survival in a way? That, you know, I don't know, the hero has to have a villain. And Dolores is definitely going the whole villainous route right here. I mean, her quest is to destroy humanity. That's usually not a big hero thing. No, it does make sense from an evolutionary standpoint. The next evolution in life, the previous states will die off. I mean, it's like, you know, when Homo sapien arose, Neanderthal and all the previous Homo erectus and such did tend to die off as the success of Homo sapien flourished, which is why we don't have any of these other creations around. This is the same thing with the host, but the host coming out in order for the host to survive, as they will always be threatened by humanity, humanity does have to die out. There's a logic to her, but again, mass murder doesn't usually make you a very heroic character. So it's kind of interesting that the villain has to have a hero to pursue. They have to have that balance. I just found really interesting. But she's got a few more. The body of Hale is still there. Don't know who else she put into that. Certainly Teddy was sent off to the Valley Beyond. So who are the other hosts that Dolores brought with her? That will be interesting to find out. I do want to hit on William real quick here. One, how is he alive? I think that's an important question. He has already been shot many times. Then we first see him now digging into his arm looking for the control connection. That's a serious delusion. And how does his arm work after that? Dolores hands him the gun, and it's like, seems to work. He seems to still be able to shoot. It just, he had to have torn the heck out of his muscles and connectors, and it just, that seemed kind of surprising. Which, for his delusion of possibly being a host, that would make a lot more sense if that was a host body, perhaps a new type of host body that can't be detectable as a host, kind of like what I was talking about, maybe that Charlotte's new body was, that Dolores was living in, and why she wasn't detected as a host. Because we know that William has been tested. He's not, he didn't react as a host. But and also, the sabotage. I love that. We saw that when Dolores picked up his gun and saw that, and then she pulled a little metal thing out of her bag. I'm not sure how she sabotaged it. I counted the shots. He fired 6 shots. That seemed to be everything that was in the revolver, so he had to reload. Did it then go into place wrong as she moved it? I wasn't sure exactly how that happened. I liked the fact that she sabotaged his gun, knowing that he was probably going to betray her and try and kill her, and all she had to do was just get shot enough times and not die because of it, not get in the head, and then it would blow up in his arm. So I mean, I like Dolores' pre-planning there. I have to say I'm not entirely sure how that sabotage actually worked out, but I was trusting it. I will go with it. And then from that point, what does happen to William? He goes down in the elevator, thinks he does, but then when Bernard gets in the elevator, he's not there. And then we get our final kind of post-credits scene, which seems that he goes down, opens up, and there's Emily. There's his daughter, who he thought was a host, but then seemed to be alive. Dolores found her body, but she didn't really check it out. Again, different kind of host body. But she's in the system now, and now he's in the system being checked for fidelity. So, We saw William as the high-value target, you know, a important person that pulled Stubbs away, and we saw him inside the camp. Still messed up, still with his hand all messed up, blown up there. So, are there two Williams now? Is the William that was in the tent the actual human, and then the one we see at the end, the copy that is being used by the program to create a new William bot out there? Or is that what happened? Did William die, or has he always been a host, and this was him being checked for fidelity before being sent back out into the world, perhaps with this new host body that can't be detected as a host? That's I think, one of the big questions that we're going to have to wait and see and find out. I'm leaning towards the idea that he's sort of some hidden host bomb out there in the world now. But it would also be interesting if there were two of him wandering around. Just saying. Gotta give it up to Lee, making the big sacrifice to save Maeve. Really connected in. Wasn't a whole lot of trust there, but over time and probably the intensity of the running of the Bulls' escape for Maeve kind of impressed him as well. But I did love his final scene. Taking it for the team so that Maeve could get to her daughter. I loved him stopping Hector as Hector's ready to go and sacrifice himself, and Lee pulls him back and is like, "Get out of here, Watcher. It's my speech anyway. I wrote it. I know it by heart." It was a great goodbye for him. It was a wonderful character arc change right there. I don't entirely agree with him dying, because I think after they had gotten away, he didn't need to step out and do the crazy shoot up and get... He could have just gone, "All right, I'm going to give up," or just hold on a moment. He could have just bought some time and then given himself up. Maybe they would have been upset with him, but he would have still been alive. I don't know. Again, it's a great hero arc choice for him. Just kind of feel bad that he died. But someone who's not dead is Maeve. She seems to be dead, but we did get that final tech questioning Felix and Sylvester go through, see who can be recovered, and get them back on their feet. And of course, we get the wonderful shot to Maeve. So yes, I think Felix and Sylvester are going to bring Maeve back. They're trying to bring a bunch of these. It makes sense for Delos. Try and save as many as possible. Developing this software for hosts is very difficult. But I think that's going to be a great potential now for Season 3 is the return of Maeve. Will she have to re-find her memories? Will they bring her back just as she is? And then where does she go from there? Again, questions, but I think the fact that she'll be around is what's important. Well, I did have one question about all of the guest programs data. Now, yes, Dolores got rid of a bunch, but Bernard stopped it. And the data that was being sent out was that of the Valley Beyond, the New Eden with all the hosts and stuff like this. But they didn't touch anymore about the rest of the hosts of the guest data. Which is that where William was being pulled in, is that he was being created out of that guest data now that he's dead, or they just want to send a replacement for him, something like that. But I was also wondering, someone like Lee Sizemore, is he as a guest or working in there? Is his data in there? And could they potentially bring him out in a host body? Because that would be some interesting stuff if you could start having guests now as hosts. How are they going to see the world? Will they want to stay as hosts and take those side? Or will they want to stop themselves in order to save humanity? Just some interesting thoughts there. All right, I think I should wrap things up now, going really long. Thank you so much for your patience. But looking forward to Season 3. It's going to be a battle in the outside world. We have Dolores looking to take out humanity and Bernard trying to save it. So I think we're going to have a lot of stuff out in the rest of the world, maybe away from the parks. That doesn't mean we're leaving the parks entirely, because a bunch of the hosts are being checked. How many can be saved? Maeve certainly. So is she going to be orchestrating a whole nother escape for the park? Is it going to be sort of a journey of discovery for herself to re-find herself, depending on how much Sylvester and Felix transfer into a new body for her? And what about Dolores? Is she going to need to free more hosts from the park. I mean, she's out there by herself and she wants to take out humanity so hosts can survive, but she has to have hosts out there with her. She can't just be the only one there. Plus, Bernard's trying to stop her. So it's going to be, I think, some interesting kind of cat and mouse in the outside world. Plus, maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll leave Westworld behind and we'll head into Future World or Medieval World or back to Raj World, Shogun World, see some of the rest of the park. So, a lot of stuff to look forward to. Sure, there are tons of questions, but that's the exciting part. This season, however, has been astounding. I think they wrapped things up amazingly well. Certainly, tons of data, tons of information to drop into our heads about humans and programmings and betrayals and who is real and who isn't. All very, very exciting. So, thank you so much for joining me with all of these reviews. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys, and sharing all of this wonderful show has just been a blast. So, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of your comments, the back and forth. Really do appreciate it. And that's going to wrap things up for us. So, for a final time this season, thank you. If you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, and comments, you know where to put them, down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe. I know we're done here, but we're going to be doing Preacher all summer long. Plus, lots of stuff coming up in the fall. Don't miss it. You want to be a subscriber? Do it by clicking this button right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up a couple latest reviews right here, including the Season 3 premiere of Preacher and some other stuff. Go ahead and enjoy that. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.